Hi friends, hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello! Ow. If I could be cool for just like 5 minutes, that would be amazing for me. Hi, today's video, candle of the day. Candle of the day today is the Dream Lavender and Linen candle. I've been in a real lavendery mood. It makes me really happy and excited. I don't know. Today's video. So today's video is one that I'm actually really excited to be talking about and to just kind of discuss this whole thing. I love videos like this that are kind of more like open-ended discussions about things. And there's this really interesting sort of phenomenon happening on YouTube at the moment of canceled, I hate that term, but canceled YouTubers coming back onto the platform and sort of doing these like comeback videos. And it's happened so much recently that I kind of think it's worth discussing. Number one, just like talking about all these YouTuber comebacks. Also just talking about how this influx in influencer comebacks, don't take a shot every time I say comebacks. Don't do it. Talk about kind of the motives behind why people who especially have kind of already made their money feel the need to come back to their channels like this, and also kind of what this means for how people view cancel culture in general and the conversation around that. So I made a video kind of recently talking about YouTuber redemption arcs, and I do think that this is kind of similar, but I find the comeback video to be just incredibly interesting in all of this. Now, there's been a really big influx in YouTubers sort of starting again on the platform in one way or another. David Dobrik recently came back to the platform, Tati Westbrook came back to the platform, and also Shane Dawson and James Charles have been sort of dabbling in the world of social media again after everything that happened with them. Hi friends, Editing Me here, and today's video is sponsored by Felix Gray. I've talked about Felix Gray before, and they are a brand that I absolutely love. I was very skeptical when I was first approached by them, but they were like, try the glasses, let us know what you think. And honestly, I use these glasses every single day. Felix Gray are blue light glasses. Filters 15 times more blue light than their leading competitors who only filter about 2 to 3% of blue light. The frames are made of super durable material and are also incredibly lightweight, so they're super easy to wear, especially for long periods of time. The science is actually pretty clear. Blue light in small amounts is good for you, but problems can arise if you're exposed to really high amounts of blue light. So for example, if you're sitting and staring at a computer screen for a few hours a day, that is too much blue light exposure, and it can cause a lot of problems with your eyes. It can cause fatigue and issues with concentration. And when it comes down to it, our eyes were really not meant to look at a screen all day. I've been wearing these since January at this point, and honestly, the best way I can describe it, like the best comparison, is like when you're driving in the sun and it's really bright and your eyes kind of hurt because the sun is so bright, and then you put on sunglasses and your eyes feel that like immediate relief. The second I am looking at a screen without the glasses and then look at the screen with the glasses, it's just like this immediate detensing of my eyes. It's wonderful. The glasses start at $95, but if you want to add your prescription, that bumps up the price to about $145. They do have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you get the glasses and you wear them for a few weeks and you don't notice any real changes, they're more than happy to exchange or return with no questions asked. If you're interested in trying Felix Gray, you can check out the link in my description. And thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video and also greatly reducing my eye strain. Let's jump into it. Now let's talk about David Dobrik's first, because I find his sort of approach to everything to be really interesting. I'll give you a brief rundown, but most of you probably know what happened. Essentially, David Dobrik a few months ago was canceled. Personally, I would like to think of it as being held accountable for a lot of reasons, but I think the big sort of overarching themes were just that his content often exploited his friends and put them in danger, facilitated a work environment where there was a really unfair power imbalance and wasn't really giving people the opportunity to say no to being a part of his vlogs or being in his bits. He facilitated essentially the assault of one of his friends via a prank video that happened, and also filmed and uploaded a video that showed a girl being assaulted, and once he found out that that's what happened, didn't immediately delete the video. So it wasn't just sort of like, oh, a singular tweet. Not that that can't be bad, but you know what I mean. Big things that were also really intense patterns of behavior, which I think was sort of the most alarming part of all of it was it wasn't just like one isolated incident of like him not being the greatest person. The more and more and more you look through his content, the more sort of patterns you saw of just this awful, really disgusting, abusive behavior. David Dobrik made 2 apology videos to this whole situation. The first one was really bad. The second one was slightly less bad, but still pretty bad, and then disappeared for 2 months, and now has come back and is basically back to posting weekly vlogs. He said every Tuesday he'll be having a vlog. First vlog back was so fascinating to me because he literally displayed all of the behavior that he did before all of this happened, and like basically just did all of the same stuff, and the video got like 10 million views and was like overwhelmingly positive. And I was like, what the fuck, man? The David Dobrik stuff really does make me mad, and I think it's just because, number one, I think what he did, to me personally, and we'll get into this later, but to me personally, what he did was like unforgivable. Like, I will no longer be a supporter or a fan after what came out about, especially what happened with the young woman who was sexually assaulted. I will never be a support. It doesn't matter what he said or what he did. In my eyes, I could never support somebody like that again. However, it was insane to me to watch him like having his friend be pushed around by their feet by a golf cart, or like filming his friend while he got incredibly car sick and ill while they were driving. Like, just crazy stuff that basically is exactly what got him canceled. So David Dobrik essentially took the I'm a white man and I can get away with everything approach, and he really just pretended like none of it happened. He doesn't seem like he's going to be addressing any of this anytime soon. Doesn't seem like he's going to be, you know, taking more time away to reflect. He took about 2 months, which honestly, when you think about 2 months, it does kind of seem like a long time away. But as far as like YouTubers taking time off, I think everyone didn't expect David Dobrik to come back until like next year. Like, I don't think people thought he was going to just immediately come right back into things after 2 months. 2 months is really not that much time to be gone. And I think what David Dobrik's video and sort of return, and also the welcoming that he's received, I think what he kind of proves is if you make enjoyable content, you're gonna have an audience. No matter what you do, to an extent, obviously, but he can obviously get away with a lot more than most people because for a lot of people, his content is incredibly enjoyable to them. Like, they love his vlogs. He has a very dedicated group of fans who also happen to fall in a younger demographic that really just vibe with whatever he does. And what it comes down to for them is he putting out entertaining and exciting vlogs for them to watch? And if he is, then honestly, they can overlook a lot of the other stuff that happened. My sneaking suspicion about David Dobrik, and this is purely a conspiracy theory, but I fully believe that he is essentially going to be Gen Z's Shane Dawson. I think that a lot of the people who are younger right now and are really obsessed with his content and are really supporting him and are overlooking a lot of his really problematic and frankly gross behaviors, I think they're going to grow up and in like 5 years look back on all of that and be like, how did we ever overlook that? Why didn't we listen to people who were telling us this was wrong? I really truly feel like that is what David Dobrik is going to be, especially based on this response and this sort of comeback. This basically follows the Shane Dawson style of comeback to a T. It's like a really serious, very sort of unprofessional looking response, and then coming back and posting videos as if nothing happened and kind of making jokes about your scandals almost. David's already been making a ton of jokes about Jeff Wittek, a guy who has permanent brain damage because of his negligence. But anyway, the next YouTuber comeback I want to talk about is Tati's. So Tati Westbrook actually is back now. She's been gone a very long time. Like, she's been gone for, it feels like over a year. I think it's been over a year since she posted her like first video. I think it feels so much longer because before she posted her video kind of talking about Shane, Jeffree, James, all of that drama, she also took a lot of time off before posting that video. So the fact that it's been like almost 2 years at this point, it's been almost 2 years of no really consistent uploads from Tati, I think is why it was so big that she came back. And honestly, out of all of the comebacks we're about to talk about, I actually liked Tati's the best. And the thing is, I'm not a big Tati fan anymore. I definitely was at a certain point in time, but after a while I was just like, her content was just not vibing with me the way that it once did, which is fine. Like, that's just how YouTube works. Sometimes you're vibing with people, sometimes you're not. But I will say I appreciated the way that her comeback happened. She didn't pull a David Dobrik where she just like suddenly appeared and pretended like nothing happened, but she also didn't do what Shane and James Charles are doing, which is like subtly trying to get them insert themselves back into the public space without like making the full commitment of a comeback video. Like she basically just sat down and talked to everybody and was like, this is what happened, this is where I've been, this is what my life is like. And like for the most part she gave some details, she didn't give other details. Like she didn't give any updates from her previous video. She talked about her lawsuit, but she didn't like really talk about the lawsuit. But overall, I think out of all the people we're talking about, I respected Tati's comeback the most. But I also think that's low-key just because I think out of all the people on this list, her offenses in getting sort of canceled in the first place were like the least offensive. Tati's biggest drama and problem was basically just that she lied and was like caught in some inconsistencies and caught in some drama and also put her vitamins above her integrity. Like that was basically what it came down to. Even in the 3-part video series that D'Angelo Wallace did, Tati's video to me was sort of like the least inflammatory, because to me the most you can really say about Tati is that she's kind of calculating a lot of the times and that she can sometimes be a little bit manipulative and use her sort of like white woman tears to convince everybody to feel bad for her. D'Angelo's video painted that way better than I just did, but that was the gist of it. And like, while she kind of did that in this video, at least it was like honest. She addressed the stuff that she needed to address, and now she's back to posting just like her normal makeup content. Like it seems like she's gonna start posting pretty regularly again. What I liked about Tati's video too was that she was very honest about the fact that she like did not anticipate coming back. And honestly, if you had asked me to put money on it, I would not have thought that Tati was ever gonna come back. Like to me, it was like, well, she made her millions, she got in all this drama that very obviously, like whether you like Tati or not, the drama that she was involved in very obviously took a toll on her like mental and physical health. I think as far as YouTubers starting to post again, this one was definitely the most authentic feeling, and at least felt like she addressed the elephant in the room. There wasn't like lies about why she left in the first place. There wasn't any sort of like sleight of hand. She just sat down, talked, and then like started talking about makeup again. Like that's all that was. And finally, Shane and James Charles. Shane recently talked about how he edited his fiance, Ryland's YouTube video, and also made a small appearance in that YouTube video. And James Charles posted a few things on Instagram over the past few months. And I just feel like I made a whole video talking about Shane Dawson in particular, like his very calculating way that he is trying to sort of enter the internet again. And I guess I would just say my biggest gripe with the way that James Charles and Shane Dawson handle their sort of integration back into YouTube is, number one, I wish they just weren't coming back. Like that's personal. Like again, we're all going to feel differently about how people should handle things. My ideal world, what I would love to see is for them to just like not have their platforms, Shane Dawson and James Charles in particular. But I think what bothers me the most about the way that they try to come back is that they try to paint these social media breaks that they've been on as if it's a choice. And while it technically is a choice, like it was a choice for both of them to leave, I think it makes me upset that they paint it like they're taking a vacation because like they made the choice to do so, and not because the criticism of them was getting so loud that they like had to leave. It was either leave or like face the music of what you're being accused of, and both of them chose to just leave. I don't like how they talk about missing their fans and like missing everybody so much, and like, you know, I know everybody's worried about me, but like don't worry, I'm doing fine, because to me that just reeks of manipulation. People like James Charles and Shane Dawson aren't like missing their fans. They don't interact with their fans in the first place. They're not like actively talking to their fans all the time. They're not they miss the fame, like they miss the attention. They miss all of that. They don't miss you guys as individual people. I think in the way that James and Shane sort of abuse the parasocial relationship that they've built up with their audience over the years in order to maintain a connection with them is just like kind of icky to me. Like this is by far my least favorite way that YouTubers go about doing a comeback, is by trying to leave like little breadcrumbs for their fans to follow so that they know they're like still thinking about them, and still, that's all fake. Like that's all bullshit, and it's also all calculated. Even the fact that it was like leaked that Shane Dawson is working on a new video about the Free Britney movement. It's like, that wasn't leaked. Shane Dawson told someone that on purpose to get that out there. Like, he wanted to gauge what the public reaction to him doing something like that would be. And because it's about Free Britney, which is something that people feel very passionately about right now, that probably is going to go very well for him. I think the vague posts and the sort of like quasi comebacks are definitely the most annoying ones out of all of this, for sure. Now, a lot of people tend to paint this as like canceling and holding people accountable not being effective. And I can understand why it feels that way, especially when it's sort of a mountain of people who have been canceled, restarting their YouTube careers and like getting back into it all at the same time. It can almost feel overwhelming of like, well, what was all that anger for? Like, what was all the outrage for? What was all the calling out for? Because it doesn't work. These people like David Dobrik and Tati can come back and just get millions of views, and it's like nothing ever happened, and it has no real impact on them. And I think that's both true and not true. I think that's true for the short term. I think whenever anybody does a sort of like comeback in this way, the initial views and response and reaction is going to be huge. Like, obviously David Dobrik's first video back was going to get millions and millions and millions of views. Obviously Tati's first video back, Shane's first video back, that's all going to get millions of views. And obviously in the short term, fans who kind of stuck by them through all of this are going to be very excited to see them. Also on the flip side, I think there's a lot of people who were a part of maybe the trying to hold people accountable side of things who just don't want to give them the view or don't want to comment on their video to boost their engagement. So the comment sections of those videos are oftentimes really crowded with just like sort of vocal, I don't want to call them the vocal minority because I don't even know if it's the minority, but sort of a vocal group of people who are like the true fans who have stuck by them. And those are the people leaving the comments, hyping them up and everything like that. And the other thing too is when you have someone who's as big of a creator as someone like David Dobrik, right? David Dobrik has 18 million subscribers. So even 1% of his audience is 180,000 people. So the fact that this video, his first one back, only has 89,000 comments, that's not even 1% of his audience. So it's not that it's a vocal minority, but it like also kind of is the vocal minority, like hyping people up. Now, the reason I think that holding people accountable and trying to make sure that people are called out for their actions is effective, even if a person is able to successfully make a comeback, is this. When you hold them accountable, it does set this sort of standard. I hate to use this sort of terminology because I do think it sounds very annoying, frankly, but it really is kind of like making an example out of a person. And I feel like that sounds very impersonal and sounds almost sort of malicious, but it's the truth. Like making an example out of the behavior that James Charles displayed and saying, this is not okay. This is not acceptable. You cannot do this. You cannot abuse your power in this way. Doing things like that does help and does prevent things like that from happening in the future. And it also helps people who have had maybe similar experiences with their bosses or friends or people who are close to them. It makes people feel more aware and more comfortable with admitting in their own lives when things don't feel right or when things are making them uncomfortable or it opens up this broader conversation, especially when we're talking about people like David and James. It opens up this broader conversation of power dynamics, and suddenly people are thinking about that and applying that to their own life. I think it's unfair to say, oh, cancel culture or holding people accountable doesn't work because they're just able to come right back to their channel and be successful, because I think that really minimizes and trivializes the broader issues at play when we're talking about internet culture as a whole. The precedents that we set with creators on the internet today are going to have a very strong ripple effect throughout the rest of our lives, our kids' lives, our kids' lives, like everything that we are doing now, even though it does seem maybe small and inconsequential, like every type of sort of holding influencers accountable that happens now, especially on a very large scale, like David and James and Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson, all of that action today is putting things into place so that way in the future, this type of behavior, it's known that it's not acceptable. I think that's really fucking important. Like, I think that's so fucking important. That's like one of the biggest things I've learned over over the past year, we've seen it before. Like even with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, it started a ripple effect that is starting to have a lasting impact in the way that women employees are treated in the workplace, in the way that women in Hollywood are treated and more respected. Like we're starting to see the change from that movement when it happened. And even though a lot of those people who were accused during the Me Too movement have still gone on to have somewhat successful careers despite all of those allegations and things claimed against them, that doesn't belittle the movement in its entirety. I think we need to stop looking at cancel culture. I really hate the term because it's not real. I think we need to, first of all, stop looking at it like cancel culture, but also I think we need to stop looking at it as like, unless this person's life is ruined, this was all for nothing, because that shouldn't be the point. It never should have been the point in the first place. The point, especially when we're talking about influencers and people who hold so much power, should not be about, can I make sure that this person loses their $1 million mansion? And should more be about conversation around this person, not only obviously like, you know, hopefully that person grows and learns from it, but also setting the precedents going forward that as an online community and also as a YouTube community, that type of behavior will not be accepted. I also would just like to note here, I don't think it can be overstated that the intersectionality in all of this is very, very important. The fact that all of the people I just talked about are rich white people is basically reason number one why they are able to come back and like achieve this level of success. The same way that white privilege and class privilege works in the real world, it also works the same on YouTube, and I think that is something to be mindful of. We tend to be a lot harsher and a lot less forgiving of Black creators or creators who maybe come from a different socioeconomic background. And honestly, we hold people to different standards, not only based on the content they create and if we find it enjoyable. There's also a lot of discrimination that ends up happening in cancel culture, and in turn, when people try to make comebacks or try to explain themselves or try to better themselves. Now, I don't think that's something that's going to be like fixed overnight, but I do think it's just something to keep in mind. There's this very real internal bias in all of us, and I think it's just important to sort of observe and keep our eyes on, especially in situations like this where we're seeing so many predominantly white and well-off YouTubers coming back onto YouTube with basically no problems and nothing but support. That got a lot more ranty and macro than I thought it was going to. I didn't have any of that last bit in my notes, like the whole like bigger picture stuff. It really, that was off the cuff. I just started thinking about it and I was like, man, that makes sense. Anyway, I'm really curious to know like what makes you forgive a creator and what makes you feel like, okay, this is a good comeback or a bad comeback. Like what are those factors for you? I'm just genuinely so curious to know. For me, there are certain things that creators do that like I will never forgive them for. David Dobrik, James Charles, Shane Dawson, all great examples of people that I personally will never be able to forgive for the things that I have seen them do, regardless of if they grow or change or evolve, like whatever, those are not people that I'm willing to support anymore. However, people like Tati, who personally for me didn't cross that line of no return, I'm okay with like watching and seeing how things go with her. I'm okay with, you know, I'm gonna be cautious, but seeing how things go. So I'm curious what the factor is there for you. I have some ideas, but I'm curious what you guys think. Yeah, that's gonna be it for me. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with some links and information for Pride Month. You can go check those out. Stay informed, stay involved. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! What?